Hello, Accelerated Chemistry, and welcome to your syllabus. This is not thrilling material, but you do need to sit through it, listen, take notes, take note of any questions that you might have or anything that is fuzzy, and bring them to class so we can discuss them next period. Obviously, it is your responsibility to make sure you read this document in its entirety and make sure you understand what's in here. Accelerated Chemistry. So here are my help times. Those are important because it's quite possible that at some point during the school year, you will find that you either worked on some outlines or some practice problems and something's not working, right? You can't seem to get the right answer and you don't know why, right? That's when you should make time to come see me. Course materials. Hopefully you already have your book. And you should already have a calculator because you had to get one for math last year, and that one will be just fine. In addition, if you are prone to forgetting your calculator, your basic function calculator for middle school is also fine. Like you could keep that in your chemistry binder and then you'd always be prepared for class. I do also recommend an actual binder because every unit will have a significant amount of stuff associated with it. And a binder is a great place to keep that organized. There's a hole punch in my room on the back counter. Chemistry is cumulative. I will say that so many times that you'll get sick of hearing it, but it's cumulative, right? Which means that the more organized your binder is, the better off you'll be when we get to things like, I don't know, semester exams and stuff like that. And not even semester exams, but what you'll see is that the stuff we do in chapter 2, we will use that again in chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. If you like to have dividers, right, I would recommend that you organize by unit, right? So do a unit, right, and mark that with a divider. You will also need closed-toed shoes for every single lab. Otherwise, that's considered a safety violation. So just make sure you have them, right? You're welcome to keep a pair in your locker and change right before class, or just bring them to class and change when you get there, and that would be fine, right? You also will need goggles for every single experiment, and occasionally you'll need gloves. These are supplies that I will provide, right? So again, goggles and gloves are supplies that I will provide on when we're actually in the lab. All right, what do we learn in chemistry, right? We learn about matter and the changes matter undergoes. We talk a lot about what's happening microscopically and why that leads to what we can see macroscopically, right? That's a lot of what we do, right? One of the big things quantitatively is dimensional analysis. That's basically what we start learning in chapter 2, and we use over and over and over again, just in a slightly different way, okay? The big takeaway from chemistry, right, because some of you guys may be like, well, I don't care about chemistry. I don't plan to do science, which is fine. That's great. But what chemistry teaches you is it helps you with your analytical thinking skills, right? And every single person should leave my class a more confident problem solver, right? In that you can look at something, figure out what you know, where you're trying to go, and how can you get there, right? And that's a huge life skill, right? Here is a quick summary of the topics that we will cover during the course of the school year. How to learn chemistry, right? This part's really important just because chemistry is unique and different as a science, right? One, it's decidedly cumulative. Cumulative means that if you don't learn chapter 2 well, you will do poorly in chapter 3 and then 4 and then 5, etc. until you make the time to actually master what was in chapter 2. So please bear that in mind and try to do it the right way the first time. That would be awesome. Okay. Anyway, things to help with that. 1, prepare for class, right? And that means things like checking Schoology. That means thoughtfully completing homework and classwork. Note that this word is very important. I promise you that everything I give you, it's to help you master the content, right? There is no busy work in chemistry. It is all stuff that's going to get you to the point where it is mastered, it is stored in long-term memory, and it's something you can access and use easily for the rest of the school year, okay? Questions, that's important, right? Make sure that when you have questions, you write them down and you get them answered, right? Oftentimes, we will have time to work during class, right? Either time to get a head start on your homework or do some problems or whatever. And that's a great time to ask your questions, right? If we don't have enough time during class, you're welcome to come by during one of my available periods, right? Or email me and we can schedule an appointment. But everybody has them. Ask them, okay? And the review packet, I can't emphasize enough, it is a significant undertaking and it is something that needs to be started immediately. It's something I typically give you at least a week to work on. And if you make the mistake of trying to save it for the night before, you will do poorly, right? There's a reason I give it to you a week in advance, because I expect you to work on it every day for a week. That's why I give it to you then, right? Okay, review daily, right? And if not daily, regularly, right? In that's how we learn things, right? In that we take a small chunk, we read it, right? We practice it again, we review it again, right? We quiz ourselves on it, right? And we test on it, and then we keep using it, right? It's that repeated exposure of a small chunk of information over time that leads to real learning, right? So bear that in mind, right? And think about that as we go through the year, and that should help. And the next big thing, right, is that if you are doing the number 1 and number 2, you will realize when you are fuzzy, you will realize when you don't understand or when you can't solve a problem. And so come see me, right? And if you see me right away, we can probably fix the problem in just a few minutes, okay? If you wait till the end of the unit, I can't help you at that point, right? There's nothing anybody can do to help you. Please take these things to heart. Okay, what do grades look like in chemistry? Well, there are 4 grade categories. We've got tests, which count for 50%, right? It's a percent-based course. 50%, which is hefty, right? And you're like, geez, that's scary, right? But that's because we've done so much preparation before we get there, right? That the test should be easy, right? Tests are cumulative because chemistry is cumulative, right? There's nothing I can do about that. We have at least 2 per quarter. A test covers a unit, which is typically 2 chapters. I do not offer retakes or correction points because, again, we have done so much practice up to that point. And as if that weren't enough, your review packet counts as part of your test grade. Let me say that again. Your review packet counts as part of your test grade, which means that everybody gets like a huge buffer on their test as long as you do the review packet well, okay? We'll talk more about that when I hand out the first review packet, but bear that in mind, right? Quizzes only count for 25%, right? Which means if you look at those numbers, right, quizzes are half the weight of a test, meaning that if you do poorly on a quiz, that's fine. It's not a big deal. Because the whole point of a quiz is to check if you're prepared for the test, right? And if your quiz is lackluster, that's a clue to you, I will pick it up between here and the test, right? If your quiz is stellar, it means what you're doing is working well and you're in a good place, right? That's the point of a quiz, all right? Labs have a 20% weight, okay? It's great. It's based on several components, right? You've got your pre-lab work, your in-lab work, and your post-lab work. And all of that makes up your lab grade, right? So in general, it's not as though a poor result is going to give you a poor grade, right? Safety infractions will give you a failing grade, yes? All right, and we'll talk about the safety contract next time. All right, homework is only worth 5%, right? So what that means is that if you scored perfect on everything else, you could still make a 95 without doing any homework, right? Does that make sense? Obviously that's not recommended because if you don't do the homework, right, then you'll do poorly on the labs, you'll do poorly on the quizzes, and you'll do poorly on the test, right? But the point of homework is that it's supposed to be daily practice that you choose to do because it's good for you, okay? Note that I will check homework spontaneously. Whenever it suits me, I will call for homework, and you need to have it ready and let me look at it, okay? The whole reason it's only 5% is because that everybody has a day where, you know what, you've had either like a bad day or a bad night, or it was that perfect thing where all your classes had something and you just didn't get it done. And that's fine, and I understand that, which is why homework only weighs 5%, even though it's probably one of the most important parts of the class, okay? Which means that if you didn't do your homework, it's not that big a deal, right? As long as it is something that happens very, very rarely, okay? Note that homework is going to be either complete or not, right? Because it's meant to be a quick check and it's only worth 5%. So for all of those reasons, your homework is either going to be well done and complete or just not. And here is how to think about your grades, your quarter and semester grades. Okay, next up, late work policy. Some work is accepted late, 10% per day that the assignment is late if I choose to accept it. These things are never accepted late, okay? Absences are detrimental. One, make sure you always check Schoology, and that will give you a lot of the information that you need, okay? If you are able, you should do work while you're out, right? And obviously, we understand that there are times you can and times you can't, right? If you know that you're going on an extended family vacation, right, where you're missing a couple of days of school, you need to do that work before you go, right? Or if it's one of those kinds of things where you have to stay home because you're sick, right, or you've been exposed or something, but you're not feeling poorly, right, then yeah, you should get your work done, right? Yes. Whereas if you are the kind of sick where you literally can't function, right, or it's a spontaneous and sudden, oh my gosh, my family needs to leave town right now, and I haven't planned for this, right, then that's different, right? So, which is why one of the important things is always to come talk to me, right, or talk to any of your teachers whenever an absence occurs, right, and then we can work through what your options are. Anyway, things to note. If you are absent on the day of a quiz or a test, you'll take it the day you return to school, regardless of the letter day, okay? If you don't, the late work policy will apply, okay? And again, like I said, if you miss a whole week of school and there happened to be a quiz or a test during that week, that's different, right? This is mostly to prevent, again, this probably doesn't apply to you, but I'm sure you know of somebody who happens to be absent on a lot of days where there are tests and quizzes, right? And so point number one is designed to help prevent that. Okay. Number two, if you're going to be absent for more than 3 days due to something that's planned and excused, see me before you go so we can talk out your schedule, right? If something unexpected happens, right, see me the day you return and we'll work out a schedule, okay? And if you miss a lab or a demonstration, there's not really much we can do in terms of helping you get that experience, right? You're still responsible for all the information. You're still responsible for if that shows up on the quiz or the test, right? So it's just on you to make sure you get that information. I would recommend getting notes from 2 different classmates at least, right? And then take that and then come see me, right? Take note of the things that are fuzzy, things you don't understand, and see me so we can work through them. Note that if you miss a lab, you just won't get a grade, right? So what that means is if we did 3 labs in a quarter and you were absent for one, you would only have 2 lab grades, right? Which means that each lab would count a little more, okay? Extra credit and bonus. Note that I do not give extra credit to individuals. So if it gets down to the end of the quarter and you are 1/10 of a point away from what you wish you had, no, don't ask me. I'm not going to give you any points. I'm not going to give it to you, right? Because I give bonus all year long, and it's your job to take it if you think you might need it, okay? Obviously, make sure you have your laptop. Your laptop is not for taking notes. In chemistry, it is basically like math. You can't record the math, the diagrams, and the formulas on your laptop in a meaningful way. Honorable expectations. This is the list of things that would constitute honor code violations, right? So if you see any of these, talk to me or talk to an honor council member. Tests, quizzes, and exams are to be completed independently with no other resources. Homework and review packets may be completed with 1 or 2 classmates, right? So note, not in a giant group. You can't have a giant class text about it, right? But you may work with 1 or 2 classmates, and each member should contribute to each question. Divide and conquer is not an acceptable exercise in chemistry, okay? To be crystal clear, it is never acceptable for you to divide up a chemistry assignment and each tackle just a few questions and then share the answers or the work. Never acceptable in chemistry, okay? Each member contributes to each question. That's how you learn. And each member should have a record of the work. You can use books, notes, not Power School. That should be Schoology now. And if you don't understand the work, you can't write it down and call it your work, right? Does that make sense, right? If you work with a partner and that partner says, this is how you do it, and you say, ooh, I still don't understand, you cannot write that down. That's cheating. Yes? Is that crystal clear? And I will know, right? Because if you turn in all your homework and review packets and they're excellent and you fail my test, that says that the work you showed me on those other assignments was not your own, okay? Pre-lab and post-lab activities can be completed with your assigned partner or group. More often than not, they are lab groups are assigned randomly, right? So whoever is in your group, that's who you may work with. And again, no divide and conquer. If you have a tutor, the tutor may help you with these things, right? They cannot help with graded assessments, which include review packets, tests, quizzes, exams, semester review packets, or lab activities. If you do have a tutor and you're like, what can I work on? And you want to sit down and tailor some specific things, come see me and I can help you pick stuff out if that applies to you. Okay. All right. This is our syllabus. Again, please ask questions if something is unclear. Other than that, thank you for listening. Be good. I look forward to a fantastic year. All right. Bye.